Buddy. Yeah, it's a minute till 7 because when you're at this American Intelligence Media School, if you're here at 7 for class, you're here too late. Welcome, Thomas. Douglas Gabriel, good to see you. And we've got a big show lined up tonight.
Thank you so much. And it's good to see you, Betsy.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get this party started. Now, everybody was in the chat room while I was setting things up, and somebody asked if I would make sure that everybody knows about the cyber research teams that we have here at the American Intelligence Media. We started this, as you can see, back in 2018. We wanted a way to get organized in this decentralized space that we call Truth Media. And so what we did is we formed teams, and of course we gave them names, but you can call it whatever you want. We just have different levels because people have different skills and talents and they want to use them because we have a war to win, people. This is the great information war. We have been filled with propaganda, lies. We don't even know our history by these globalist Cecil Rhodes zealots for over 100 years. And so what we're doing literally is we're waking people up, and we have to wake them up in a way that's easy and gentle, but that they get the point. So here are some of the categories, and I'll have all of this posted on the CAT report. Now, these are our geologists, and they are the ones that are going to get the information in the like the deep geologists. They have to look for materials that they know carry truth. They then send it to me. We call that Betsy's team. And then we make sure this information gets out to you. Now, we have to be very careful when we accept material from geologists. They have to be folks that we've worked with before and that we know understand the cosmology that we're building here and showing you here. So those are our geologists. And you would certainly put Michael McKibben and those amazing team of researchers at AFI in that category. Then we also have miners. Now, when the miners come in, they're taking the material that the geologists have left and they're fine-tuning it even more. I'll give you an example. When we pull things out of the mines about the British early on at the turn of the century, we need many times to be able to use genealogists. So we have genealogists on the team. Remember, not everybody is located in a physical space. We're spread out all over the world, but they will check facts, and we also cross-check it with one another, people in different locations. And geology is very important in our work because we're finding that these family lines continue to go on and on. We'll talk about that. I mean, just look at Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. People don't do this kind of work and this kind of crime in the world if they can't pass it on to their offspring. So we pay attention to that. Then at the next level, we have what we call our smithies. And these would be people who know how to write articles. They could take the material that the geologists and the miners have pulled out, and then they look at the big picture. They write articles. We post articles everywhere. We have so many people out there have blogs. They're reposting our material. They're adding their own. For example, I saw that Africa now has an African intelligence report, and they model theirs after the American Intelligence Media, but they give focus to their country. And we welcome people to do this. And so we have smithies all over the world. If you can write, if you can understand where we're going and write clear, crisp articles, we certainly ask you to send them in, but we also pick and choose from places that we've worked with in the past. And then finally, we have our jewelers, and these are the people that make the stories, the truth, a piece of eye candy. And I think of Headlines with a Voice. Nancy Morgan Hart does such a beautiful job reading the news to all of us. But then lately we have this phenomenal cartoonist, Infotunes. That's Michael over there at Infotunes. And he's taking some of our work and making it as cartoons so that we can share it with a younger generation to understand what our real truth history is. So wherever level you're on and however you want to participate, we love to have it. And that's how, as a globe, as a planet, we're going to be able to disseminate truth into our networks. This is very decentralized. There's no organizing body. Each one of you out there will have a circle of influence, and you're going to find a way to gently awaken your circle of influence. You're going to use your skills and talents to do it. And if each one of us does a little bit, then the whole world starts waking up. So thank you, Douglas, for letting me have that moment. And where are we going to get started today?
Oh, I want to tell people who wrote the whistleblower complaint, because everybody's talking, look, a lawyer wrote it. Yes, a lawyer did write it. That would be John McCain's associate.
Douglas,
yes.
We can't see your face. Now, why can't we see your face?
I see it.
I don't see it. I don't think people see your face. Folks over there, do y'all see Douglas's face?
Okay.
Is your camera on?
Here we go. Technical difficulties. The webcam. Yes.
Okay. Well, just keep talking and we'll keep listening. He's gone. Everybody says you're gone.
I'm gone.
Oh, there you go. Now you're coming up. All right. Hold it. All right.
But do you,
yes.
I'm not speaking. Do you see my face?
Yes. We see your face.
I'm back.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry, and I'd like to apologize to all of you who now have to look at me. I was kind of hoping that wouldn't happen tonight. I want to reveal something that nobody else is going to tell you. And why? Because we just wanted to make sure that you understood this. John McCain is not dead. He lives on in Kurt Volker. He lives on in David Kramer, the one who gave the dossier to BuzzFeed, the criminal, the treasonous traitor, involved in sedition with John McCain. But John McCain had another assistant whose name is Henry Kerner. Now, unfortunately, Henry Kerner was the chief of staff for McCain's Senate special committee on investigations. So therefore, he is completely conversant with how criminality happens, how investigations happen, and how to get out of them. Well, after John McCain was busted for being really the person who literally solicited the Christopher Steele dossier from Andrew Wood, a British ambassador prior to Russia. When he solicited it from him, he couldn't get it, so that he sent David Kramer over to get a copy from Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele wouldn't give him a copy, supposedly, but somehow McCain got it, and then McCain had David Kramer take it over to BuzzFeed. Well, look at this. Isn't this a coincidence? The whistleblower complaint went to BuzzFeed, and BuzzFeed actually helped the whistleblower write it. But we also know that BuzzFeed are a bunch of idiots, and they don't have any legal logic in their brain whatsoever. Just go ahead and read their site, and you'll see that that's true. I'm not just making that up. So who were the lawyers that helped write it? Well, as we know, the whistleblower, a CIA agent who by law has broken the law by not passing up a whistleblower complaint to the Inspector General for his agency. So what do we see here? We see that he came to who? To Adam Schiff's group, the same group that worked with Michael Cohen to prepare his false testimony, worked with Felix Sater to prepare his false testimony, worked with Glenn Simpson to prepare his false testimony, and then, of course, they released that, though it was behind closed doors. Same old thing. So the whistleblower supposedly came to Adam Schiff's staff and said, I have this complaint. Wrong. No one in their right mind who's ever signed a top secret security clearance would ever do such a thing. Not possible. Matter of fact, it's impossible. So therefore, what did happen? Well, here's what happened. John McCain was the #1 supporter of the Party of Regions, which twice deposed Viktor Yanukovych in color revolutions, the Orange Revolution and the Maidan Revolution. Now, this party is really, I've said before, and I'm going to make sure I say this carefully for the person who wrote in and made sure I understood there were many nationalist groups in Ukraine, many different parties, and the Party of Regions hates to be called the Nazi Party, though they in fact supported the Nazis during World War II. But that doesn't mean they're, Nazis. They're just simply fascists, and they're economic fascists. They're basically a group of oligarchs who are trying to become a mafia. Who was the #1 person over there promoting both of those revolutions? John McCain. John McCain, all you have to do is put in John McCain, Ukraine. You will see more pictures, more videos, him getting more awards, him there right during the Orange Revolution, right there during the Maidan Revolution, when scores of people were shot during that. John McCain was promoting it. $4.7 billion he was the deliverer of from the State Department in U.S. aid, and also now they do it through tricks of loans, OPEC. So John McCain was not only part of the Russian dossier, absolutely the first person involved. That's who they called first when they found out that they needed a cover story involving Russia and whoever was going to run against Hillary to cover for Hillary's Ukrainian one involvement and for her reset with the Russians, and for the fact that she's a Russian communist and a Chinese communist. So the McCain International Institute of Leadership, during McCain's bid for the presidency, demanded that Russia twice give him $1 million for his campaign and donate it to the McCain Institute. When McCain was questioned about this on multiple occasions, he refused to even answer. He said he has nothing to do with that institute. That is a big fat lie. Now, who is Kurt Volker, who also worked for that institute? And we're going to come back to Henry Kerner in just a minute. Kurt Volker is a CIA spy. And then he became a diplomat. Why? Because he was so good at spying. And diplomats are oftentimes spies, especially CIA, counterintelligence, lying, stinking, infiltrating, disgusting spies. And that's who he is. And then he worked one year for the UN, and then he worked again as a diplomat, and then he worked for some private agencies, and then he worked for some of the worst left-wing groups that you can possibly imagine. And then he became just out of the blue, Rex Tillerson decided to choose him as the representative, as a special envoy, not to really be hired by a government, but as a special envoy for Ukraine.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we've got to get a better camera on you because you're very blurry. So we're going to try this and go into your settings and add that one. And get it focused. And I'll go add you down there.
Well, so what you see here is let's just get to the long and short of it. Adam Schiff hired Pelosi and Schiff and Nadler hired two of the worst attorneys in Washington, D.C. to prosecute their case against Trump. That's who helped write this. But they had the help of Henry Kerner, because Henry Kerner, after he was John McCain's assistant, he then became the special counsel for the special counsel office. So any whistleblower has to come through him to determine whether or not it's legal. And so what did he say? Just like with the Kellyanne Conway, he tried to prosecute her for the Logan Act violations. Okay, that's only been done once in history before. That's how crazy this man is. And he is John McCain, still alive to this very day. When you take those three people, put them together, and you add Mitt Romney, John McCain ain't dead yet. And one of the worst areas of John McCain's influence was Ukraine, and then the manipulation of the Atlantic Council and Ukraine against Russia. Because McCain has to have an enemy. He also went to Syria. He violated the Logan Act. He went to Syria and promised them all these weapons and then came back and lobbied for it. He's the #1 lobbyist for weapons in the Congress.
Now,
of course.
Excuse me. I'm so sorry, but you're still very blurry. And I gave you a new camera. And when you went into settings, okay, now you're clearing up. And it seems like when I talk, you're fine. Well, this is what live stream is. So continue on. We'll see what happens.
I don't know. So what we see here is Kurt Volker was also part of writing this, because we now see that Adam Schiff released the written statement that Kurt Volker made behind closed doors. And it's really shocking that they even allowed the Republicans to come, because they said they were going to block them from all of these subpoenaed testimonies. And then we assumed, of course, that they would simply cut and paste it and then release it as a PR nonsense against Trump. Well, it is PR nonsense, because the opening statement has been released, and it's the only thing that had anything that the Democrats wanted in it. what it says is that he knew John McCain for 24 years, and that John McCain, not possible that he could have done anything wrong whatsoever. Well, that's complete nonsense. Now, Kurt Volker was placed by Rex Tillerson. Why? Trump didn't place him. He placed him because that's the only person who knew the corruption going on in Ukraine personally, intimately, because his boss, John McCain, basically helped George Soros and the CIA and a variety of different groups, actually, to conduct both of the color revolutions in Ukraine. So what we are seeing here is, oh, by chance, the same people, John McCain's buddies, Kurt Volker, who was the one who is the special envoy to Ukraine, who they were expecting to dump on Trump and say there was quid pro quo, which there was not. And also, basically, he exonerated him. So Volker did not pan out, but Volker was there not to do really the biddings of the Democrats. He was there to cover his own rear and to cover the path of perdition that John McCain leaves everywhere that he ever went. So then we have Henry Kerner. Well, Henry Kerner had to be involved in this. And then he had to make the decision that even though it had this whistleblower complaint, the current one from the CIA about the call between Trump and Zelensky, no, someone had to say, this isn't valid, because it wasn't valid. Not only because they had to change the rules so that secondhand whistleblower complaints can then be filed so that they can simply use it for PR, a basically smear campaign. So what is really going on here was that they changed up the form so that a CIA agent who they were probably not, they really don't want to release who he is because he goes to jail. And if he doesn't release the people that he got the information from, then for sure he goes to jail. And if they simply hold him to his security contract, then he goes to jail for a long time for sedition and treason, because he knew full well that what he said was a lie. Kurt Volker knew that what he said was a lie. Henry Kerner knew that the whistleblower was a liar. The two lawyers who helped create the presentation illegally, not going through the IG. And by the way, the IG, you're not going to find an honest IG. It doesn't matter what agency it's in. And we know that because Michael Atkinson, the IG involved in this for the intelligence community, is as corrupt and as crooked as he could possibly be. Why would he say this has no credence and then continue to act upon it? Why would he give any credence? Why would he not simply arrest this person? Obama, with whistleblowers, when they would blow the whistle, guess what? More than half of them were prosecuted for being spies.
So who's going to do the arresting? We keep talking about they need to be arrested, they need to be charged with treason, but who is going to do it? They're all corrupt.
At this point, it's the people who are the leaders. And so some of these people who are doing the backroom deals and hiding these things aren't going to be the ones with their head on the chopping block. Right now, it's Pelosi and it's Adam Schiff, because what they have done is criminal. And it has nothing to do with the government. It has to do, well, if you want to involve the government, it's a national security issue, isn't it? And it's an attack because it's lies. And what is it attempting to do? To impeach / have a coup d'etat on a sitting president by disqualifying a previous election and or disqualifying a future election. So this is normal Soros tactics. It happens all the time, happened in Ukraine twice in a row. We have good old John McCain there. We have Biden there. We have Biden, John Kerry was there, getting Christopher Hines, his son-in-law, lots of money. We have Joe Biden getting his son lots and lots of money. Then they went to China and did the same thing.
But it also shows that all these previous presidencies that we have lived through, you know, they always talk about how graceful one leaves and hands power over to the other. That's a big lie. They were all part of the globalist operation to take over America, all the Bushes, the Clintons, all of them. And Trump is the first one to come in and is not part of this group. So that's where the resistance is. And now we're seeing really what they're up to. And they do not want him elected again. They will die. They will be extinct as a party, the Democrat Party. So they're looking at their options, and there are only two. And impeachment is not going to work, and nor is the second one.
Yes, and what we see, some people may certainly get arrested. But what we definitely see is that the wheels of the bus of the Democrat Party have fallen off, all four of them, and that John Kerry was, well, let's not forget, it was more than John Kerry. John Kerry and Hillary Clinton and Obama, completely guilty of the same thing in Iran, guilty of the same thing in North Korea, guilty of the same thing in Syria, guilty of so many crimes that as these start to come out, if we can simply make it possible that an elite in Washington District of Crime, DC, will actually get prosecuted, then the dominoes will fall. And yes, I've said this from actually even before Trump was elected. The people who tried to stop him from getting elected when asked whether Comey would go to jail, I kept saying, not until his second term. I'm going to keep repeating that, folks. Not until his second term will he have the power to act, because then they can't hold over him this nonsense of reelection, or the nonsense of him being the party leader, or the nonsense of causing the party problems. No, he hasn't caused the party problems at all. In 2024, there will be another continuation of Trump and whoever it is. Why? Because the Democratic Party has now thrown it all into the game. They have bet everything. They have bet the farm, and they've lost. They've already lost. Mitch McConnell just said, basically, he laughed at them. Do what you will, but the vote in the Senate is going to be very quick, because there will be no evidence. And he will call for the question as quick as possible. And as long as Trump doesn't wish to draw it out and basically subpoena the people who we're talking about here, so that they can testify to the truth of the matter and not only present exculpatory evidence, but also present the evidence to put their bosses in jail, it's just not going to happen. I do not believe at this point that it will get out of the House, simply because of the backlash that is happening. Only crazy people support the impeachment at this point, either crazy or vested interests. And 66% of people polled say that the Dems are completely insane and obsessed over this, and that it's going to lose them votes. People are walking away from the Democratic Party over every single day that the news is this garbage, instead of the good news of money being in their pocket from tax returns and such.
Douglas, we've got such a bad visual on you. It's so bad. What I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to close you out of the session. Just close out and go back to the link and reopen it. And let's see if we can do something better, because now your frame is even freezing up.
Okay.
Okay. He's not going to like this, because I made him do something technology wise. You know, we always laugh when Steve Pachinik comes around. Anytime Steve does it, his wife comes over and sets it up. And I laugh so hard. He's supposed to be some high-ranking psychologist for the government, and his wife has to help him turn on the computer each time. Well, oh, and there you are. That's so much better. And thank you for taking the time to do that. Now, let's continue on this exciting conversation.
I'm not sure what happened to you just now, Betsy. You seem to have disappeared, but I'm going to keep on talking. Ukraine. Ukraine is where every Republican, and it's not just the Democrats, look at McCain. Look at what McCain is doing there. Of course, McCain is in his grave, but his warmongering continues. It's not going to stop. And the people that he has basically trained and put in these positions will certainly continue. So yes, BuzzFeed picked up the whistleblower just like they picked up the Steele dossier. And who was it that blew it and gave it to BuzzFeed? McCain and his man, David Kramer. So who was it that blew this whistleblower attempted takedown of Trump? That'd be McCain's assistant, Kurt Volker, his assistant, Henry Kerner. And I'm sure that David Kramer was involved, because he too has been right there along with McCain throughout the whole thing. So what we have here in Ukraine is that both of the evil parties that were vying for Ukraine basically didn't win in the recent election. So Zelensky, who thanked Trump for basically being his mentor and basically showing him how to win his election, of course, he was a comedian. And what did he do? He played a president as a comedian. It just shows you that becoming the president has to do with it. It's a publicity contest. It's simply a Hollywood production. As I've always called it, it is nothing more than a Disneyland production. And Trump knew that, but he came in and basically he's been consistent for the last 20, 30 years with what he had to say about politics. Few people are. So he had the best chance of anyone of getting in there and changing things. But what Kurt Volker's letter, which was his opening statement for his testimony, says over and over and over again is that Trump just really dislikes Ukraine. Well, why wouldn't you dislike Ukraine? Because Alexandra Chalupa went to Ukraine to dig up the dirt to give to the people who wrote the Christopher Steele Russian dossier. The Paul Manafort frame up, came out of that. It was the same people that Joe Biden was working with. So the very person that Joe Biden said they had to get rid of, the prosecutor, Shokin, he was just as corrupt, but he was on Biden's side. And Biden knew that he was corrupt, and he didn't say a word until his son got caught in the crosshairs. And why did his son get caught in the crosshairs? Because they were putting simply political people on that gas board for political clout so that they would have power over these issues of sanctions and so on and so forth. So no doubt, Joe Biden made some kind of quid pro quo arrangement with the gas board to put his son and Christopher Hines, who was connected to it, and Devin Archer, his good buddy, on that board. And they, of course, that's absolutely, he traveled, and then he traveled to China with the vice president on an official visit, and 10 days later, got the only deal anybody's gotten out of China, $1.5 billion. Now, remember when Trump went there and they thought that they had $250 billion worth of deals in just the time that Trump was there? I always remind people, not one single penny of that worked out because the Chinese cannot be trusted. They will lie, lie, lie. Now, we can go on talking about China, but I wanted to find out if what Betsy thinks about whether we've addressed this question on Ukraine or whether there's any questions about it, because it's a complicated issue. And if you don't know the history of Ukraine and you look at it, all you're going to see is a gigantic mess. You cannot hardly figure out who's on whose side. So when I say Joe Biden and John McCain literally were servants of the Party of Regions, who are fascists, who did support Hitler in World War II, the same party, and that they did stand there as they received those awards and gave the Heil Hitler sign. We have pictures of it. It's pretty darn hard to believe him when he says he didn't know anything about his son's business deals in Ukraine or in China. So sorry, Joe. I think Trump's right. You're going down. And hopefully we're going to find out more and more about the evil of John McCain as this unfolds.
I know you could talk nonstop, but we have it live streaming, so people have questions and comments. And so let's keep them short and punchy and get to the point. Cuddle Bunny would like to know, who controls the Atlantic Council?
George Soros. It is a private organization, and they take donations. And so we donate to it, and all members, well, many members of NATO donate to it, but it's George Soros who gives the most money. And it's George Soros' Atlantic Council that set up the fact checkers, the truth checkers, and a system of what he calls, what everyone calls AI, that is scrubbing the internet of any conservative voices or any voices that say anything that they don't like. So literally, when it comes down to it, the Atlantic Council is a private organization, but it is it's the fear monger for the Russia, Russia, Russia. So anytime you have anyone saying Russia, 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 they have some association with the Atlantic Council, because really, Russia was our friend in World War I and World War II. They were our allies. And in fact, we've never really been at war with them. They've done horrible things, of course, with some of their awful leaders, but who put those leaders into power? We did. The American International Alliance, the Pilgrim Society, Lenin and Bolshevism was created in Britain. So when it comes down to it, Russia and some of the worst things that ever happened in Russia were actually perpetrated by people who speak English.
Well, related is Peggy Sue, and I think she's asking, did Russia donate to the McCain Institute or Ukraine?
Well, it's very complicated. John McCain twice demanded of the Russian ambassador to America in a letter, which we have seen both times, $1 million for his campaign. And then he sent his thugs, the very people I've just mentioned, Kramer and Kerner and the others, after Keselek and others saying, look, you Russians, you have to donate. Okay, that's illegal. But they said, well, don't worry. We donate to the McCain Institute. It's no problem whatsoever. John McCain controls the McCain Institute, always has, and that has been demonstrated after he denied it in public. So neither of those $1 million contributions ever made it to McCain in the open that we know of. I assume they made it to his offshore accounts. But we do know that a $5 million donation from Saudi Arabia came in after McCain was selling weapons to Saudi Arabia. So the McCain Institute is nothing more than a slush fund. It is a money laundering institution, but the real money for McCain is in his offshore accounts. And I can guarantee you that Ukraine has paid him a great deal of money, exactly as Syria and Turkey and the other countries that have used him to promote war.
Okay. Now, Tim's question is interesting because he's wondering, is there something going on in Boston here? Everything seems so Boston-based about Ukraine shenanigans. Bulger's nephew, Kerry, Mueller's old FBI office, of course, and there was a Ukrainian assistance around the Boston Marathon bombing. Make anything of that?
Mitt Romney
that's a whole nother story.
That was Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows it. Duval Patrick. Everyone knows if you want to simply score illegally a position, you go to Massachusetts, and yes, Boston specifically, because they control the election machines there. So why does it pop up? Boston, Boston, Boston. Well, the Boston Marathon bombing, which was fake. All kinds of things happen in Boston because they have very, very good control over it. And it is so politically tainted and corrupt that a Mitt Romney can just sweep right in and take over the whole state. That happens again and again in Massachusetts. I'm sorry to have to say. I love Massachusetts. I lived there for some time, and I really, really love New England. But it is extraordinarily corrupt. It's like Connecticut. Nothing... Sorry.
Okay, we have a lot of questions. So let's keep clipping through them. Nature Girl, and hi, Nature Girl. She's been with us for
hi, Nature Girl.
I'm not sure it says it's a girl, but we don't know. Very bright, and I love the great comments left under the YouTube. And this is a great question here. What about James Coffer Black, an associate of Mitt Romney? He was on Burisma board. Was Mitt a part of this? I'm sorry, you may have already talked about this when I was running around trying to get your camera fixed.
No, I did not. Mitt Romney is as guilty as anyone can possibly be for also fleecing Ukraine. And on the Burisma board was also his chief advisor when he ran for president for the national security advisor, probably would have been the advisor. But that he was his counselor during the campaign. So Coffer Black he's a corrupt Mitt Romney person from Bain Capital, and Bain Capital worked with Jonathan Bush to fleece Russia through Riggs Bank and Velmet Bank. People don't know that George H.W. Bush has a brother who is as corrupt as he is. And if you look closely, they might as well be blood brothers, Mitt Romney and Jonathan Bush. I don't know if Jonathan Bush is still alive, but we do certainly know his history. I haven't checked on him for a few years. But we do know his history is absolutely clear that he was part of the fleecing of Russia both times. And he basically was a behind-the-scenes Vulcan. And he was basically also the teacher of Mitt Romney. And Mitt Romney sent one of his best people over to score a position on this board because of the sanctions that they knew were coming. And when that happened, then, of course, the Bidens and the Hineses and the Kerrys became filthy rich.
I just want to bring everybody's attention to this name, Duval Patrick. We did a little article on him a while back ago because it's our feeling that he may be the dark horse that may come out and run at the last minute. Now, not sure, haven't seen a lot of Duval Patrick in the news lately. Anything catch your eye about him?
He showed up in the South to support people as if he was a big, fancy guy. He is Obama's choice. He is Barry Soetoro's choice for president. He already said that. He is hiding himself. When he came out, we bashed him. We did an expose on him, an intelligence report showing he's as crooked as anybody, showing that the elections were involving him were corrupt. And now he's hiding. And what we believe he's doing is he's covering his trail exactly as Obama did. But the deal is going to be very simple. When George Soros decides who the Democratic candidate will be, that is when it will be decided, period.
Okay. And JR, Arizona Patriot, and hello to you. We see a lot of your comments under YouTube and are very appreciative of your thoughtful comments, and you do help to educate people that drop by. The question is, will we ever be able to trust election results? And when you answer that, make sure folks know about Soros and Romney's election rigging system.
Yes, we will, when two things happen. E-verification, so you have an ID specifically for voting that is not connected to the Department of Motor Vehicles, because that's how New York and California and Massachusetts, particularly in New England, the states are so close that there are buses that go all day between 3 different states voting many times. Some of these people vote 5 times in a state. That 15 votes. That's what I'm talking about, how easy it is to win certain elections in New England because of its close proximity and because they allow this to happen. It's like New York saying, oh, no, you're a legal alien. First off, it's illegal. I'm going to arrest the person who called you an illegal alien. Then I'm going to give you their medical insurance, 100% coverage, even though the person I'm taking it from only had 50% coverage. And then I'm going to give you all the rights that any citizen has. That's what they do. So are we going to have a good election? Yes, because of the following. Trump is scaring the snot out of all of them because he has said 3 times, e-verification, paper ballots. Now, all states by law must have paper ballot backup. There are 5 states that don't. That is illegal. They can all be basically held accountable for that, and we don't have to take their votes. We don't have to take their votes in the federal vote because they don't have paper ballot backup. So Trump has called for it. That's scaring the heck out of people. We have the white hats all ready to make sure that the OPTEC program that can actually be messed with remotely, which has been demonstrated again and again. We have people who are on the ball. We're watching for the man in the middle to make sure that the Secretary of States don't send it otherwise to other places. We saw that Trump took it out of the hands of the Homeland Security. We know of the people who own these machines, and we've busted them. And so if there's a single state that doesn't believe the vote, demand the paper ballot recount, period. You control this, voters. Demand it in droves. Go to the Secretary of State and demand that you have a paper ballot recount if Trump doesn't win. Because if he doesn't win, that's stupid, because he's got, 98% of the support of the Republicans. He has right now 52% of the support of the fake polls, as I say. Add 15 to 20 points on it. That's what we've seen before. Therefore, he wins with a landslide. There doesn't even need to be a contest, except that George Soros is going to have his candidate, and there's going to be billions poured into that candidate.
But what I find very disturbing is Ronna Romney McDaniel is the chairwoman of the Republican National Committee. And why hasn't she reported her Uncle Mitt and cousin Tag's election rigging software? She surely knows about it. It's a family business. And now we're seeing a pattern that all these corrupt politicians and globalists always make sure that their children get a piece of something on the way that they go out. And so I want to know, and I want patriots to start asking Ronna, when is she going to report on the election fraud from the Romney family?
Ronna, you need to say that any votes from a Hart intercivic electronic vote counting machine, that you have to discount that. Why? Because you know that your uncle and Tad control those machines.
T-A-G-G. Tad Romney.
Sorry, Tad.
Right, that's Mitt Romney's son. And they also, and George Soros is also a part of this.
Oh, Soros, along with Malik Brown, own their own version, own their own companies.
But they still all have the OPTEC software in it. And this doesn't just affect elections here in the United States. Patriots all over the world, this affects you too. You need to see if that software is in there. And everyone needs to demand paper ballots. We have to have these elections straightened out. So I know I'll go on and on, but related to this is a question: how does the McCain Institute compare to the Clinton Foundation?
Well, the McCain Institute for International Leadership is kind of like the Council on Foreign Relations and the what is called the Roundtable Societies of England, also the Royal Institute of International Affairs, which are basically all Pilgrim Society groups. They are basically all controlled by the Privy Council. Now, what he was trying to do is what Hillary was trying to do. Hillary was trying to be the Queen of America and have her own counterpoint to the Queen of England. And I'm not exaggerating in any sense of the word. She controls the crypto keys, as the Queen was trying to take over uranium here in America from the Russians, which in fact she did. And Urenco did take over the uranium one. That's the reason Hillary got her payoff, and now there's no more Russian intervention in our uranium industry here. So the Hillary Clinton Global Initiative, you cannot compare anything to that. She has over 24 foundations. One of them, the Clinton, Clinton Justra Sustainability Growth Fund, which has changed its name recently, received $200 million in cash as a donation from Frank Justra to his buddy Bill Clinton for the Uranium One deal. No one even mentions that. So the $145 million that went to the Clinton Foundation that Jonathan Weiner says is the tip of the iceberg. Jonathan Weiner, who was in the State Department on the 7th floor with Hillary, came out with his alibi as soon as they got caught, and he said clearly that APCO, which was doing work for Hillary for free, which was another donation for a campaign that wasn't claimed, said that he personally saw these millions being delivered personally with his own eyes. And then he said the most amazing thing, that you can't just look at if you look at the Clinton Foundation, that's about 2 billion they've collected. But if you look at all of their foundations, that's 20 billion. So the Clinton Foundation can't be compared to anything except the Queen and her ripoff of all 54 Commonwealth nations and putting those ripped off funds from resources and from fleecing of countries into her offshore accounts. Only the Queen can compare with the Clinton Foundation. Remember that Andrew McCabe was conducting either 4 or 5 investigations on the Clinton Foundation, which just never got finished. And then we didn't find, the Inspector General didn't find anything odd about that. And as far as we know, there was another one started where they went down to Little Rock and they gathered up all this amazing amount of stuff on a plane, and the FBI agents went down. They went to Rose Law Firm where Hillary had worked and stolen many patents. They gathered up all this information, came back, and everyone said, good, there's going to be a prosecution. No, not necessarily. That could just be hiding the evidence. So is anything in history comparable to the Clinton Foundations? No, because you have to remember the Clinton Foundations are much bigger than anyone wants to admit. Hillary is a paid board member of the Walton Family Board, the largest private company in the world that the world has ever known. And she's paid. And when 51% of our manufacturing, household manufacturing went to China, she got a piece of every single thing that China sold to us. Nothing can compare. And then what she did with Russia, basically the same thing. But she did that to 120 different countries when she was a Secretary of State and got paid emolument donations to her foundations, which we know of. We know of these. And it's sad that no one will simply make a list of them for us, because if we did, people have made partial lists. It's embarrassing to look at that list because there's hardly a country on the face of the earth she didn't fleece and scam, and we did nothing about it. She fleeced so many countries that she had an agreement with Obama saying, I'm going to tell you when I'm fleecing them. And then she still fleeced a whole bunch she didn't tell Obama about, which this is the kind of thing that Hillary Clinton then becomes absolutely in history one of the most notorious figures in any country, anywhere, at any time.
But it becomes so gross. I mean, you amass all of this wealth and you do it off the blood of human beings, your fellow human beings. And then you just don't park money somewhere. You got to do something with it. So where's she putting this money? Where is it being invested? I mean, are all these globalists just investing in this fake stock market and what we're really seeing is the inflation in the stock market and also in medical care? You know, you look, inflation's not always in the places that are at the grocery store. You look at places like, you know, if a Band-Aid at a hospital costs $100 when you go in, you know, when you get your bill, that's an inflation. So it's showing up in places like that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, the Clinton Foundation has been shown to give about 2.5% of the money donated to them to their cause.
Yes, but that's it. So the other money has to go somewhere, has to be invested, and not just the Clinton Foundation. Like even the Bidens, when they get all that money, it has to go somewhere. Where are they putting this money? And if you say offshore accounts, I mean, what does that mean? That's just a blip on a screen. The money is not doing anything. I mean, George Soros, we know his money's out there working. It's working against us. Where is Hillary's?
Hillary takes her money, and this. Let me just tell you one scam. Okay, the Juster Clinton Sustainability Growth Fund. They went and built a massive hotel in one of the most. Well, they do this all the time. They build massive projects in third world countries where no one can even get to the site, and then guess what? They get loans. So it isn't good enough that they steal all the money for the wrong purposes, put it in their own pockets. Then they go out and under the names of different companies who already, like Crown Agent companies, get OPEC loans. So they go to third world countries, they get an OPEC loan. This happened directly in Afghanistan. It happened in Jordan. It happened in many third world countries that I can't even name, in Thailand and all these places that you don't even know exist, okay? So then they get a loan. And the loan directly comes from we the people. And the loans always get defaulted on because the project can't be finished. Or they say the project's finished, like an electrical dam or whatever, and it never was even begun. So she gets money hand over fist, not only emolument clause donations to the foundations, but then inside USAID and OPIC loans, and grants, and gifts that she and basically, you cannot get an OPEC loan unless you have gotten one before. So if you're not in the old boys club, you can't get one. But if you're in the old boys club, you can get a loan for anything. How about this one? How about Halliburton getting $4.5 billion loan to dig for oil in the Golan Heights? And then they kept the profits. And guess who was involved in that? That would be Rupert Murdoch, Jacob Rothschild. That would be Dick Cheney and a number of the usual suspects. They used OPEC money. But what was that? That is just another one of the kind of projects that the Clinton Foundation, the Global Initiative. For instance, Alexander Downer, the one who was part of the Russia dossier. He is twice, he was one of the most powerful people in Australia. And what did he do? $24 million in money he donated to the Clinton Foundation for AIDS, HIV. Almost none of the money got to anybody in Australia. But what people don't know is that's the tip of the iceberg. He actually gave 3 times that amount. And almost none of it, got to anyone in Australia who has AIDS. So when you're looking at these people, if you're a Hillary Clinton crony, you're not only donating to her little foundation illegally, because none of them are actually true tax havens, because they've all been woven into previous foundations and the Clinton library and so on and so forth, basically what Obama's doing now. And they hid the money that way. And of course, it's nothing more than a slush fund and a way to launder money. And that's, as I say, the tip of the iceberg. The other deals that the Clintons are doing go far beyond even their own foundations. So what do they do with the money? Here's what they do. They took it and they bought the companies that owned the crypto, that get the yearly charter, basically a contract for the crypto keys for everything on the internet. So she bought those companies. She's bought the companies of the key companies that control the infrastructure, because she's been in on the IP theft from the beginning. She was there with before these companies even go onto the stock market, before they put up their IPO. She is there, and she's been there on one after the next. So what does she do with it? They have bought massive estates. One of their estates is in South America, and it is over one of the largest aquifers of fresh water, the second largest aquifer of fresh water in the world. She's bought land. And then the problem is she went to the Shanghai Economic Free Zone and thought she was going to be able to do her work there. And now she's found that didn't work out. So she invested billions in China and lost it. I can only say that's your karma, because the money that you basically ripped off America and gave us cheap Chinese products that literally are radioactive and poisonous in many cases, you deserve the karma of being poisoned by the Chinese, Hillary, and you deserve the karma of losing billions in China right now, along with Kissinger and Bannon and Breyer and all the rest of them, because China's never going to let you make any money. And that comes to Hong Kong. I haven't said this before. Hong Kong is happening because the umbrella revolution of 2014, the George Soros umbrella revolution in Hong Kong, supported by the Brits, supported by the rogue CIA, didn't work. And what is really happening is the two stock markets in China, the one in Shanghai and the other one in Shenzhen, they are absolutely disasters. Why? Because the richest people in China moved to Hong Kong and they put all their money in the Hong Kong exchange. China's going to take that down. I've told people this for some time. I just didn't want to say anything because of the following. Trump agreed to do nothing about Hong Kong until the tariff war is over with China. Why do you think the tariff war is going on? Do you think that China wants to lose tens of billions of dollars every month? No, it is because the big money is being made on the Hong Kong exchange, because foreigners can come there and they're not in the Shanghai zone, which is delimited to basically only Chinese making money. And remember, the Chinese Central Committee controls everything on the two Chinese stock markets. They do not control the Hong Kong stock market. So what this is about, that's the reason that so many of the richest people in Hong Kong have been extradited to China, because their families were captured, put in jail, and held hostage until they came there, and then they were captured and killed. And their money was confiscated. So the people who have made the most money off of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange are dead because the Chinese have killed them. And that is what people really are fighting about there. They know that China is not going to let control of anything. They still control Hong Kong 100%. They say 50%. Now, can you imagine that? The Chinese communists say they control Hong Kong 50%. 50%. They also believe that Taiwan is theirs. And so they're getting ready at any minute, as soon as the Hong Kong thing is over, to attack Taiwan. And it is only Trump's intervention by sending in warships again and again in the Straits of Taiwan, between China and Taiwan, again and again and again and again, to tell China, we acknowledge that Taiwan is a sovereign country. As a matter of fact, the 51% of our goods were coming from Taiwan, principally. So right now, as they did before, Trump tried to get the Taiwanese companies to move to America. One of the largest was going to, but then the Chinese intervened. The Chinese have basically politically taken over Taiwan, and any minute they're going to try to take it over for industrially and through a military takeover.
Well, we're going to be wrapping it up, but I want to close by that funny thing that happened when AOC was doing a presentation, and someone in the audience got up and claimed that the new Green Deal was really all about eating babies. And of course, it's come out, well, the Washington Post reported it, so you never know if the Washington Post is accurate or not, but they say that it was someone from the LaRouche campaign that did it. But I don't care. Folks, this is an information war, and we all need to do what we can to shout out the evil wherever you can. Now, this was great because whoever this person was arrived there, had her message ready to go. It was a biting one, had the T-shirt ready to go, and also had two cameras on her. That was important because she was able to get AOC's reaction as well as another camera getting hers. Then they could bundle that up and put it in a digital format. And then once it was released, our decentralized network works so fast. It was seen around the world before the Washington Post could even realize what was happening. And we need more of that. If you can do things locally and you can film it and bring it up, send it to us here at the American Intelligence Media, we'll help to disseminate it as well. Any closing remarks? And I'm going to check over here and see if there are any last minute really good questions for you. Okay.
Yes, my closing remark would be something to the effect of anyone who thinks that Lyndon LaRouche is a supporter of Trump or a supporter of Republicans is incorrect. There's lots of evidence to demonstrate why. I have followed Lyndon LaRouche quite carefully, and I know where his insanity starts in. And I sincerely doubt that you can accredit LaRoucheites with being Trumpites. It's just not going to happen. But what I did notice is that AOC was listening to what the lady was saying, and I actually thought AOC was considering it a good idea.
Yes, but here's the thing. I just wanted to show it as a technique that works because we have information warriors all over the world, and they go, what can I do? Well, maybe you can go to a meeting like this and ask questions and say, no, I don't agree with you, and then film it, and we can send it around the world. That's how you can make something local go global.
I just also want to inform people that AOC is an agent of the Young Turks, and the Young Turks were created by Giuseppe Mazzini, the fascists. AOC is a full-on 100% fascist using the same techniques that have been used by Benito Mussolini, by Giuseppe Mazzini, by the fascists of Britain, by the fascists of Ukraine. It's the same old story. You simply want to demoralize the public, take away everything that is moral, and then basically rule as a dictator. And how do you rule as a dictator? By making rules that are absurd. For instance, the lady who stood up and said, we're going to have to start eating babies now, she clearly said, and I loved what she said, you all are polluters. You're breathing carbon dioxide. Shame on you. You all should be banned. Matter of fact, she was insinuating they all should be killed and eaten. Because why? They exhale carbon dioxide. Anyone who thinks that a carbon footprint is a reality and it's going to be basically it was going to be the new currency of the United Nations is stupid. They're so stupid because they don't know that all you would have to do if this was true. Al Gore, how many trees have you planted? Because if you planted a few trees, Al, it would eat up the carbon dioxide that your big fat self is exhaling every time you lie about the statistics. This was when Al Gore didn't win. This was his consolation prize of the globalists. They made him the representative for carbon credits. Carbon credits were going to take over for the International Monetary Fund special drawing rights. It was to be the new coinage. It was to be the new currency of the whole world. And everyone would owe a tax for breathing. That is correct. And depending upon what job you did, they actually calculated how much you breathed. And if you're an athlete, you breathe more than an executive. So you would be charged more money, believe it or not. And and who was to pay the money? Only America. In the first few years, it was only America paying anything. And where did the money go? To China. So if you think for 1 second that AOC is in any way a real person, the head of the Young Turks is the person who brainwashed and manipulated her. And now another Young Turk, Chakrabarti, who was her handler and her lover, has bombed out. Remember, he interviewed hundreds of people to try to find a sexy little girl that he could manipulate and brainwash into saying stupid stuff that no one with any intelligence could possibly believe. We cannot end all internal combustion engines. We cannot do the things in the Green New Deal. None of them, actually, none of them. And anyone who would believe that would also believe the lies of socialism that leads to fascism, that leads to Hillary Clinton type of communism.
Well, thank you very much. And I hope that everyone out here got your questions answered. Some of them were not really on topic, but we'll cover that in the next CAT report. Folks, if you don't get the CAT report, we push it out once a day. Sometimes it's twice a day because there's so much news. Our team works round the clock collecting the best news that we feel that's important. We're always trying to drive the narrative forward, so we don't like to stay in a spin zone. So that's why it's difficult if you haven't followed us for a while. When you jump in, we just, jump and run, because we're trying to win the war. We're trying to educate as many people as we can and just wake people up. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, audience.
Thank you, Betsy.